So welcome again, Kushi. Thank you so much for joining us again today.
Thank you so much, Sharon and Trisha and the whole team. I just want to express my gratitude again for Yoga Alliance for making these webinars possible for our own learning and for sharing through community. So welcome back, everybody. If you're new for this week, right, this is our part 2 of our session. And today we are going to be discussing the Vayus. So before we begin, would just like to start with a prayer. So if you would like to, you can close your eyes, fold your hands. The main importance is to just focus on the breath of life coming in and exhaling out of your body. गणेश ग्रह नक्षत्र योगिनी राशिरूपिणी देवीं मन्त्रमयीं नौमि मातृकां पीठरूपिणीम् ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः. Namaste. Welcome all who are joining. Want to thank you again for coming with your full attention and care as always. So this series, is kind of our song to prana. It's our devotion to prana and our, week by week we get into a little bit deeper of an understanding of what is this prana, what is this prana shakti, the energy of prana itself. And to do that, I realized last week I didn't really share my intention for what this series is, what I wish it, what it's meant to do, right? And it's really about the upholding of the legacy of yoga. In my view, in my experience, yoga is not something that we do or partake in, but it is a living entity that is transforming not only our bodies and minds, but by our own practice, by our own attention, intention, right? And by our own sharing of the practices, we are also transforming yoga. So it's a living legacy. It's not something that was just in the past, it's in the present right now, and it will extend to the future. So the level of our intention, our intensity, our integrity, and our focus towards upholding, preserving the teachings, and practicing yoga in a holistic way, right? Whether that is, so much now related to social justice, whether it is to open up the frame of yoga to all populations, whether it is to understand the difference of the colonial effects of yoga. All of these things are related to our own act of love, right? This love in action and how we interact with yoga to gain a wider perspective in our wisdom, in our understanding, so that our legacy, right, what we are partaking on now, our legacy for future generations is strong. So one way to do that is by our attention to the pranic force, the prana shakti inside of us. There's a story from the Vedas that I think points to this very nicely. There was a conversation that was happening between the five senses or the six senses, including the mind and prana, and these six senses were kind of arguing, right? Who is the master of this body? Who is the main controller? And one mind was saying I'm the main, and the eyes was saying I am the main. So they decided that, okay, let's all leave one by one and see what happens. So you can imagine, right? First the eyes leave, sight is gone, but the body is still breathing, body is still alive. Ears go, cannot hear anymore, but body is still alive. The speech goes, cannot speak, body is still alive, right? All of these things, the mind goes even, body is still alive, but unconscious. Finally, prana leaves. As prana leaves, then the body also is no more within the life force itself. Body is dead. So they all realized, oh, Prana, you are the ultimate. You are the Maha ruler, the great one who animates this whole body, this whole experience for us to have, right? Within our five senses, within the mind itself. So Prana is the first, right? It's the first step to really understanding how to meld our body and mind together in a harmonious way. So I'll just share my screen with you all so that you can see where we're going today. All right. So like I said, today is part 2, the Vayus. Some of you, or most of you, should be familiar with the Vayus from your training, right? And how the Vayus are another medium through which we understand subtle body imprint within our own, 5-foot, 6-foot structure. As you know, we talked about this last week, our journey into the subtle body. We started last week with the koshas, which are the sheaths from moving into the outermost gross level, and then deeper and deeper and deeper into the Anandamaya kosha, or the subtlest aspect of ourself, which is the bliss body, right? This week will be the Vayus, and then we'll take it from there. Our kind of guiding principle during this whole series is the yatha brahmande tata pindante. This is the understanding that whatever we study within our body helps us to understand the world around us and the constituents of the world around us, why the world is the way it is, right? Through this introspection. And the opposite, whatever we study outside of us gives us clarity to our own body system. And there's some nice quotes from the Upanishads. So this week, our main Upanishad that we'll be studying is the Prashna Upanishad. And this Prashna Upanishad really speaks to what I feel is the deepest essence of prana, which is that all that exists in the three worlds rests in the control of prana. As a mother protects her children, oh prana, protect us and give us splendor and something, I can't read the last word. But so the whole idea is that prana is the mother, right? The mother energy that gives life, that sustains life, and can also withdraw life at the same time, right? We looked at this in the mantra that we recited last week, the Guru mantra, the 3 aspects of prana Shakti itself. And next week, when we talk about the chakras, we'll really talk about this mother energy, the Kundalini Shakti, right, at the base of the spine, and how that is responsible for the upliftment, not only of our own evolution, but of humanity itself. So when we are approaching the study of prana, I really want to encourage you to be in the presence of prana like you would of a benevolent mother, right? Prana is one that supports, that holds, that shows you, that illuminates the way. Another Upanishad, right, says that the Vayus, what we're studying, our mode of study today, the Vayus are the gatekeepers to the heavenly world. And if you are not familiar with the Vayus, this is from last week, right? The Vayus are what's known in yoga as the winds, right? The way that prana moves in the body, right? So moving in different directions, and the Vayus are responsible for this movement. So if you look and consider the winds in our atmosphere, the wind can blow across, it can blow up, it can circle in a little typhoon, right? It can move in waves, it can move and disperse, it can be light and soft, it can be hard and strong. And this is sort of representative through which, when we observe our own inner body, how the movement of the prana is, and how we can gain a little bit more sensitivity to understand what the Vayus are telling us, right? The Vayus themselves are located within the pranamaya kosha. So last week, right, we did the kosha model, and now we're going into the second sheet, the pranamaya kosha. So we're going to stay in the pranamaya kosha now for the next few sessions, right? And not only are the chakras in the pranamaya kosha, the Vayus are involved in the pranamaya kosha, right? The bandhas as well, work into the pranamaya kosha. And all of this helps us to understand the link between this physical body and then the deeper layers of the mind itself. So without prana, if prana is not in the body, right, this body is just kind of like a lump of clay, right? There's no animation to it. The vayus are what start to animate, start to mold and shape, right? Even though we're in the subtle body, but they mold and shape all the organs, all the systems of the body, right? So it's much like a machine that is bringing in, the prana is bringing in the fuel, the maha prana, the main prana is bringing in the fuel so that all these other pranas can start to work and operate, right? So if you look, your prana vayu, the vayu in the heart region is really responsible for creating the lungs, creating the heart, right? The openings in the upper face, the apana vayu, the downward flowing wind in the body, is responsible for creating the openings, the apertures in the lower body, the urogenital organs, right? And the samana vayu responsible for creation of the internal organs, the openings of the relationship between the stomach and the intestines and the colon, all of those things related to samana. And then vyana, right? The extremities and the modes of circulation. What is the life force that creates, that molds the nerves, that molds the arteries so that blood can flow, so that these messages can flow throughout the whole harmonious system. And then Udana Vayu, right in the throat, that is really responsible for the way in which our speech is contained and this upward movement, the sense of lightness and upward movement in the body. So really the vayus are what are, the kind of these sentinels or generals that kind of direct, movement in the body itself. And then the chakras, so many people are confused. What's vayus? What's chakras? The chakras are just the concentration of these pranic energies. The vayus are the movement and the direction, right? So we will talk about the main 5 vayus, but just know that there are other prana vayus as well, right? So there are usually listed about 10. These are kind of the minor vayus, but you can look, I won't go into them too much, but you can see that there are vayus that control very specific functions in our body, such as yawning, such as hunger, such as opening and closing, such as the eyelids, when we burp. Like, what is the vayu? There's a vayu that controls that action of, the belching action. So all of these things are controlled by very specific kind of aspects of prana. And then the main prana, so the maha prana, it's called the great prana. The main prana is what is giving the direction and information to all of these other vayus or winds in the body. So the text that we will pull from today is also in the Upanishads. So the Upanishads are, again, before Common Era, right? And we are pulling from what's called the Prashna Upanishad. So if you speak Hindi, you know the word prashan. Prashan means question. So Prashna is the Upanishad of questions, right? There's 6 questions in all related to different aspects of Brahman. And the question that we will be focusing on is the 3rd question, right, in these series of 6 questions. And it's a conversation again, right? The Upanishads are always these conversations between Kausalya, who's the student, and Pipilada, who's the teacher. And Kausalya specifically is asking his teacher about prana. What is the nature of prana? And why does it split itself? And what do these splitting into 5 mean, right? And so when we start to study the text, we get a very specific kind of introduction into what prana is and why it splits into 5. So I want to go through and share with you some of the words from the Upanishads so that you can get an idea of what is being said. And then I'm going to go a little bit more in detail about the Vayus. And then hopefully at the end, we can do an asana practice, right? That's going to be focusing on how to gain a little bit more energetic understanding of what's happening within our body. So the whole Upanishad, it starts, right, with, again, a question. And I don't want you to think it's only questions between two males, right? There are lots of question and answers in the Upanishads between, husband and wife, and various roles that are being played, right? So there are, a lot of people think, well, where are the women in yoga, right? In these ancient texts, they're there. They're more there as practitioners, right? And the way that the structure of the society was that in the academic or scholarly fields were the males. But if you look in the historical text, there are a lot of women yoginis who are very strong, very powerful in their understanding of the experiential nature of yoga itself, right? But for today, we have Kausalya and Pipilada. So Kausalya asks his teacher, from where does this prana come? How does prana enter the body? How does prana live after dividing itself into 5? And how does prana leave the body after death, right? And how does prana support all that is outside of us and all that is within us? And Pipilada responds to him, he says, okay, I see that you are a great seeker of Brahman. And we talked about Brahman last time. What is Brahman, right? The source of all that is manifest in this world, the holding source energy, right? And I see that you are an aspirant. You are doing the necessary work to get to the point where you really want to understand Brahman within yourself. So, I will answer your question. So it's not that we ask questions to our teacher and always the teacher responds. I've had so many situations where maybe my mind or my heart wasn't ready to hear the answer. So oftentimes my teachers are quiet instead of answering, right? So this is a very important, lesson for us, that sometimes maybe we don't need the answers to our questions right away, but the answers come through this striving, this aspiration to yoga through our tapas, through our daily practice that we do. So what Pipilada says is that prana is born of the self, the Atman, right? As a person casts a shadow, the self casts prana into the body at the time of birth so that the mind's desires can be fulfilled. So just like your shadow, you can never get rid of your shadow. As long as the sun is there, your shadow is always a part of you, right? So does the Atman, yourself, your innermost self, draw prana into this body so that you can fulfill your karma, fulfill your dharma, right? And we'll talk about this in the later sessions, but what is the karma that I'm here to do? What is the dharma, my duties that I'm here to fulfill in this life, right? According to the laws of nature, right? According to my own unique perception and constitution. So, and then Pipilada goes on to say, just like you have a king, right? A king who, and this is a time where there were monarchs and villages and, split, the Indian subcontinent was split in this way, that just as a king appoints his officers to go to different villages to make sure that everything is functioning correctly and harmoniously, the Mahaprana, the great prana, right, working with the other pranas, the 5 main Vayus, right, appoints them in different directions so that they can carry out different functions in the body, right? So what does he say about Apana? He says Apana is the downward force. It controls the lower 2 apertures, right? The prana Vayu, right, is in the chest and controls also the apertures, the openings in the face, in the eyes, the 2 ears, the nose, the mouth, right? And in the middle is the equalizing force, right? So in the text, Samana Vayu is called the middle breath. It's the equalizing force between Apana Vayu, your Apana Vayu below, drawing down, and your Prana Vayu in your chest. It's what draws the two together to create a balance and homeostasis within the body. And we'll go into the details of Samana Vayu a little bit later, but it's a very important access point for us as yoga practitioners, right? And this Samana Vayu makes sure that all the food is distributed accordingly and correctly to where it needs to go in the body, the energy, the prana of the food, right? And that this distribution is governed by the 7 flames. In the Vedas and in yoga, the Agni, the fire principle in the abdomen, is said to have 7 tongues, right? 7 different colors that are responsible for different digestive aspects that happen within the abdomen itself. So this Samana Vayu is kind of the matriarch, the governor of these 7 flames of Agni, responsible for digestion, assimilation, absorption. So then he goes on to the next is Vyana Vayu. Vyana Vayu, remember, is that pervasive Vayu that extends in all directions. And I really love the description of Vyana Vayu. He says, the Atman is in the heart. Here there are 101 nerves. And we're talking about nadis, not the physical nerves, right? But the nadis that are kind of superimposed. You can say our physical nervous system is superimposed on the subtle body nervous system, right? So within the Atman, within the center of the heart, the Anahata chakra, there are 101 nerves. And from this 101 branch out again. And from this 101 branch out again until 72,000 extend in all directions. And it is within all of these nadis, all these 72,000 nadis, that Vyana moves, that Vyana expands, that Vyana has its domain, right? So Vyana is, if you look in sort of the way of the elements, Vyana is the container. It's like the space element. It contains and creates the system so that all other of the Vayus can exist within it. And it's the one that really integrates and harmonizes, right, this proper communication between all of the Vayus. And then he says, finally, then there is the Udana Vayu. Now, Ud, you know this word a lot, right, from your yoga practice and training. Uddiyana Bandha, right? The bandha that is responsible for this upward flow. So Udana, upward, right? The flying, the lift, the leap, right? And this Udana is in the throat center. And Udana and Prana, chest and throat, they work together, right? They work together to form the organs of the chest, the creation of the head, the whole brain stem area. So they're working together to create the communication between heart and brain through the throat center, your speech, your creativity, everything that is expressed outside of you. And he says, Udana is what is responsible for at the time of death, right? At the time of death, he says, through the subtle track that runs upward through the spinal channel, and you all know this subtle track, right? Shushumna Nadi. Through this subtle track that runs upward through the spinal column, Udana, the 5th force, leads the selfless up the long ladder of evolution and the selfish down. So this is, again, bringing us back to our own understanding of also the chakras. We move from the gross chakras up the subtle track of Shushumna, right? Becoming more and more selfless as we purify, right? The impurities, the obstructions, whatever muck has stuck to these centers. And right, as we purify, that upward force, the force that draws upward is Udana. And that Udana is responsible for, right, this idea of purification within the nadis, what allows us to move up and down as well. So it's not only upward movement, but if the Udana is not functioning properly, it's also sinking us down into the base layer of the body, because there's something that needs to be attended to there. There's nothing good or bad or negative or positive, right? It's all a matter of what needs to be attended to in the moment. And then Pipalada starts to talk about the cosmos and how the prana in our chest is like the rising sun. The apana in the base of the body is like the pull of the earth, right? All of these need to be understood. Their relationship needs to be understood so that one can harmonize your own body. So in the beginning, the same. The macrocosm and the microcosm, that understanding comes together. So this is kind of this beautiful explanation, right? That's where we get this idea of the Vayus. And then in the end, there's always kind of like the answer to the question. And Pipilada says, if you understand the Vayus, if you understand this fivefold, sovereignty, meaning the fivefold responsibilities of the Vayus, right? You become a master of your own self, right? And that is really starting to get to the deeper layers of how these Vayus begin to not only move within our body, but when are they not moving properly? When is there an obstruction to the movement of the wind itself, right? So that's the text. But now if we go into the specifics of the Vayus themselves, we can start to really understand that each Vayu can be accessed through our asana practice, pranayama practice, and each Vayu can become known to us, so that when we are practicing the yoga asana, that we are practicing in a way that we become aware of the movement of the winds in our body. When you become aware of the movement of the winds in your body, you can start to regulate your system so that mastery comes in, that master prana, the maha prana, is the one that is directing, rather than your mind choosing the direction of what it should or shouldn't do, which is colored by likes and dislikes. So it's just stepping back into that field of prana, right? So like I said, Apana is really what is governing the elimination of the waste materials in our body. So for example, if you just close your eyes, just take a breath in and exhale. See if you can feel the downward pull of your exhalation. So you can try again now. That exhalation is governed by Apana. It's governed by a downward pull through the perineum, through the pelvic floor, right? Drawing things out from the whatever needs to be eliminated from the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, the cleansing aspect of the Vayus, right? And it's not only, again, physical waste, but anything that is harmful for our good health, right? An interesting thing in Ayurveda that you may or may not know is that actually in Ayurveda, when we go to the bathroom, right, when we empty our bowels, in Ayurveda, there's a recommendation to gently clench your teeth. Because at that time, Apana Vayu is so strong that it also pulls at the teeth, the root of the teeth, so that your teeth over time the root begins to loosen. So if you just gently counteract that force, the Apana Vayu doesn't pull the teeth as much, right? So you can try that and see if that works. Let me know later. And then not only that, but proper digestion, proper elimination, especially, is very much responsible for how your immunity is functioning in your body, right? So Apana Vayu is very much tied to immunity, along with your Samana, the middle breath in the abdomen as well. They work together. So on a mental level, it's the expulsion of our negative thoughts, our self-harming thoughts as well, and self-harming emotions, right? The quality of practicing ahimsa. And when we can really keep the mind relatively free of these destructive forces, right, we begin to have a very flexible and grounded outlook in life. And not only that, Apana is a protective force. What do I mean by that? The very idea of your security, your safety, feeling those things in your body, in the lower half of your body, is what allows you to feel safe and protected, right? So that idea of prana as the mother who protects the child, right? The one who protects and keeps and safeguards your system. And a strong apana vayu, if you have a strong apana vayu, you will feel that sense of security and safety in your system. And that's also protection from negative influences around us. A lot of negativity that's flowing in the world right now. So how is it that we stay safe and protected right now? And this is why it's so interesting, right? Like I said, yoga is an evolutionary process. Yoga is a historical process. So when we see what's happening in the world around us, you can begin to see which yoga practices start to erupt as most necessary for the moment. Right now, so much emphasis on yoga nidra, so much emphasis on restorative practices to ground that apana vayu so that people feel safe. They feel protected within their own bodies and protected from the forces that have been pulling and pushing and oppressing people for many, many, many centuries, you know. So these are the ways in which yoga is interacting with humanity day by day, and how we are interacting at the same time, this living force of yoga. So this protective aspect of apana, then, you know, when we don't have it, then we're more susceptible to illness and to fear, confusion, or sense of weakness within our own physical root or physical self, right? And that can result in many things like a loss of purpose or loss of this idea and feeling of deep security within one's own body, deep safety within one's own body. The next is this prana. So apana is in the lower, right, aspect. So you can think of the pelvis, the pelvic floor, the legs, all the way down through the feet and the ankles, and then the prana up into the chest and into the openings of the face, into the head as well. So this prana vayu is the one that is really the, you can say, the vital force, the wind of vitality. That's very clear when we take an inhalation. So you can again take an inhalation and an exhalation and see the interaction of prana vayu in the chest and apana vayu in the base of the body. So go ahead, take an inhale. And an exhale. And one more, please. And you can feel, perhaps, the inhale, the influx of that vital energy of prana, which is the center of the chest, the lungs, right? Bringing in the intake that we bring in through our respiratory system, right? And so therefore, the prana vayu is what energizes, right? It's the inward moving process of respiration and reception, right? What we take in from the outside world, because the mind and breath are inherently interconnected, right? Wherever the prana flows, the mind goes. This is kind of this law, this rule of nature, that there is a binding of mind and prana together, right? And this absorption of the impressions from the outside world. So you can see how the prana vayu and apana vayu create a very important container, what we absorb from the outside world and what we eliminate, right? So absorption and elimination, right, moving together. And in the middle, this equalizing force of the samana vayu. So when the prana vayu is, you know, functioning in a harmonious way, we have these feelings of deep contentment and nourishment, and also a very heightened sensitivity to what's happening around us through the mind and the senses. There's a way of taking in information that is not as tainted by our specific samskaras or deep-rooted habit patterns. We can begin to see things a little bit clearly, like taking a step back and viewing things from a larger timeline of experience, right? And it also, this intake of vitality, of course, we need vitality for this proper aspiration. And what is our aspiration? Is for our own spiritual development, is our own human development, is for our own human evolution, is for the own, acts of love that we give to the world in our service, whether it is through our work with our families, through social justice work, through our work as yoga teachers, right? It becomes all interconnected. We need that vital force of the in-breath, right? So that we have the enthusiasm to move forward and that the aspiration is there, that we can transform and move towards transformation. So if there's a dissipation or a lack of awareness or understanding of the prana vayu, right, on a physical level, this can lead to a lot of heart and lung conditions and just a very dissipated mind, a mind that doesn't have this sense of aspiration or enthusiasm. And it's not black and white, right? There are moments in our lives where we feel both at the same time. And these moments are always percolating from highs and lows, peaks and valleys. And therefore, an understanding that everything is changing all the time. Within this understanding of the pranavayu is also the understanding of impermanence, that all things change. Nothing can be held on forever. With an inhale also comes an exhale. If we just inhaled all the time, right, this body would not be able to sustain itself. So flowing with the changing tides of our very lives as well. Now, the Samana Vayu is what I really focus on a lot. I think it's for Hatha yogis, for especially those of us in Tantra, we are really strongly, laser focused on Samana Vayu, because Samana Vayu is really where we can gain access most easily, right? Now, there's a lot of focus on core building in yoga and strengthening the core. And on a physical level, that physical feeling of strength is important. But on a deeper level, what we're doing is bringing access to the Samana Vayu, understanding that how we digest, what we digest, how we metabolize is directly responsible for the homeostasis, for the turning point of our inhale to our exhale and our exhale to our inhale, and how smooth and deep our inhales and exhales are, right? That Samana Vayu helps us to understand and digest. And not only that, the Samana Vayu is the storehouse. It's the metaphoric hub of all healing energy. So if you are a healer, massage, Reiki, any other acupuncture, any other form of healing, where you are directing the healing force, the power of that force comes from the solar plexus, the center of the abdomen, the hara center, right? The center of the healing force of prana itself. It's the place that is most easily accessible for us, right? It's known as the middle breath because it unites apana and prana. So a lot of what we're doing in Hatha Yoga is unification of apana and prana so that we can concentrate into this hub of energy and that we can use that then for our actions in the world and for fulfilling whatever it is that we need to in terms of our karma and our dharma. This assimilation process, this drawing in process of the apana and the prana is, there's a saying in yoga that says, whoever masters Samana Vayu masters masters one's destiny, right? Because so much of our world, our experiences are influenced also by the astrological forces, the moon, the sun, the moving of the seasons and constellations in the world. And in the Upanishads, it says, well, if you master Samana Vayu, you will not be at the mercy of the movement of these astrological influences. You will be a master of your own destiny, because that self luminescence, right, is in your control, in your hands. This Samana Vayu becomes the stabilizer, the stabilizing element then for your life force, right? And the mind is not so pushed and pulled by desires, right? Of course, desires exist. And like we saw in one of the phrasings before, that, the Atman, the self, draws prana into the body to fulfill the mind's desires. But it's when the desires become overwhelmingly the primary focus, where we cannot retain and save and protect our energy, that it's like a leaky, bucket. All the prana is leaking in all different directions. So Samana Vayu helps to seal, collect, and protect that energy in the center of the abdomen. So you can see it gives us a sense then of nourishment, of contentment, that it regulates the fire so that it can burn evenly. And fire is a very volatile substance, right? It can destroy entire forests and homes, or it can transform, matter into digestible food. It can be used in so many different ways. So to take that raging forest fire and to learn how to control the fires of our senses, the fires of our cravings, and learn to control, so that the Samana Vayu becomes this hub, this inner hub for transformation, the inner fire that leads to the upliftment of our own evolution. And the Samana then begins to give us an access point to the spiritual fulfillment, and especially within the space of the heart, right? Giving that energy into the space of the heart then, and healing and forgiving ourselves. And it's the way in which we transform the karma, the karmic impurities within our own mind and body, known as our samskaras, right? The deep-rooted habit patterns. Why is it that sometimes we feel things release in our body, release in our mind when we practice? It's that Samana Vayu, that fire energy that is transforming, that is burning up the impurities in our body, making us feel lighter, freer, more open. And then we have Vyana Vayu, right? Vyana Vayu is very interesting. I find it very interesting because it's this all pervasive Vayu. It's what is the preservation of our own body, right? And it's the coordinator of all the 4 other pranas, right? And so Vyana Vayu, if you look at it in a holistic sense, it's really like a sense of community. It's a sense of harmony, right? When you have a sense of community, when you have your family, your friends, your teachers, your students, whoever you're supporting, whoever you're serving, right? That sense of community gives one a sense of wholeness, right? And Vyana Vayu is really that sense of wholeness. The whole body is integrated in time and space. So when Vyana Vayu, when we don't feel the whole body, when we don't feel the communication from our feet to our head, or from our head to our fingers, from our heart to our gut, when those communication lines are severed or are not flowing properly, then we feel a sense of deep alienation, right? Deep separation, deep isolation from others and from ourselves, right? So Vyana Vayu helps us to feel this integration of self. And it's, again, the one that pervades all these 72,000 nadis, but not from just random points, from the center of the heart. The heart center is the hub that then pervades, right, in all directions. And then we have Udana Vayu, right? Udana Vayu is the throat center and the upward flowing energy in the throat. And if you read the Yoga Sutras, you know that there might be a sutra that you're familiar with in chapter 3, where Udana Vayu is really what is one who is a master of Udana is a master of levitation. That means lightness, upliftment, the flying force, right? That keeps one moving, that upward force, the force that draws the Kundalini energy, the coiled energy in the base of the Kunda, up the spine through the chakras. What is it that draws it up, that magnetizes it? It's Udana Vayu. And therefore, Udana Vayu is really like this intense feeling of joy, of positive energy, of this sense of feeling upright, what keeps you upright in your meditation, what keeps the mind concentrated when the spine is upright. Udana Vayu helps in all the expression of our own creativity, right? We need that sense of enthusiasm and joy to really have these ideas that really transform, whether you're a painter or an artist or a singer or a poet, anything that is deeply creative. Even your yoga practice as you teach or practice is a deeply creative process. When you feel inspiration from your own creation as an aspect of Shakti, as an aspect of that mother prana itself. So it gives us this joy and creativity, enthusiasm to pursue our goal, to continue to walk another step, no matter if there is blockages along the way, or if we fall this way or fall that way. Udana Vayu is there to give a helping hand and help us move forward once again, right? And that Udana Vayu then eventually at the time of death, it draws the consciousness out of the body, right? So really drawing that individual consciousness, the jivatman in the heart, up and out. So these vayus, right, they really are, you can see how important they are separately, but how much the asana practice, the pranayama practices that we do help to integrate and create a harmonious structure within the system of the vayus. So before we go on to maybe physical practice, maybe if there's any question, I think we have maybe a few minutes. If Sharon, if there's any question or anything people have, I'd be happy to try and answer.
Awesome. Yeah, we have so many great questions here. Um, let's see what we can start with. Swami Vidyananda would like to know, so for someone who's fearful, would long exhalations help build feelings of safety through Apana Vayu?
Yes, focusing on the exhale is the first step of any pranayama practice. So when pranayama is a very step-by-step, first step is always we trying to lengthen our exhalations. When we try to lengthen our exhalations, we become deeply rooted in the base of our body. And we will practice a little bit, Swamiji. So we will start to understand how our exhalations can help us feel that sense of safety. And, in a week or two, when we do the bandhas, it's also the mula bandha, the sense of the drawing in and contracting the pelvic floor that create this sense of safety as well. So focusing, bringing our sense of the collecting energy down into the base of the body.
Thank you. Yes. Neil would like to know, if Maya means illusion, doesn't Prana Maya Kosha mean that prana is an illusion?
No, pranamaya kosha is just it's another word for Maya, right? So Maya is it's an illusion, but in Sanskrit, there are many meanings for sometimes many words. So pranamaya kosha, don't get confused with Maya illusion, please.
Great. Nita said that she loves how you mentioned yoga is a evolutionary process. What might be some other practices that are needed in the current time besides styles like yoga nidra?
Yeah, for me, I'm a lover of this subtle body, but I really feel meditation, but meditation that is linked to the first two rungs, which is our ethics and how we live our life. And really, I talked about this last week, and next week when we do the chakras, we'll really go into why it's so important that we govern our life in a holistic way. And each one of us is so different. We're all have different access points. So in terms of an evolutionary standpoint, where is humanity now? You can even look in terms of the US, in terms of India, in terms of Europe, like everything is in its own specific evolutionary process. So one really has to do these introspections and do practices that bring you in touch with the very force, the mother force, the pranic force of life itself, of the mother itself, and that nurturing force, knowing that you are supported every time you breathe in and breathe out, and then asking that force to guide you and show you what is it that you need to do, right?
Interesting. Let's see, another one here. There's so many questions coming in now. One second. Jana would like to know, could you give us your personal explanation of the word Shakti? You use it differently than she's heard before.
Yeah, Shakti. Shakti is the feminine power, the feminine aspect of the power of prana. The prana Shakti is the power of prana, the potential of prana. So you might have heard the word Kundalini Shakti, that's the dormant power of prana. Prana Shakti is the active power. So Shakti itself is power.
Great. Janine was wondering if you could define the three worlds you referenced earlier in your slides.
Yeah, three worlds. So the realm from the heart up, at the level of the heart, and from below the heart down. So in yoga, it's you can say that it's like heaven, hell, and the human world, right? But it's not really relevant to the way we think of it. It's the divinity, the possibility for divinity from the heart up, the human world represented by the heart, the mixing of light and dark at the heart, and below the heart, a lot of our animal instincts, our animal nature that sometimes take over.
That makes sense.
Okay, shall we practice? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of other questions. Maybe if we have time afterwards.
Yeah, you can ask me. You can contact me on my website or on Instagram.
Yeah.
And, I'd be happy to. But it's really important that we practice, and I really
Okay. Yeah.
to practice. So
absolutely.
Yeah, if you don't mind so much, we'd love to do that. So if you could, find a space, maybe you drink a little bit of water, and if we have time at the end, I'll be happy to go back to more questions. Good. So we'll start in Makarasana. Makarasana is your crocodile position. You'll go onto your abdomen, and if you can, hold on to your upper forearms, lay your head on the arms, relax your legs at a comfortable distance. Right? If you cannot lay on your abdomen for any reason, you can always lay on your back in Shavasana, no problem. So with your body against the ground, there will be a very clear connection for you between your body and earth itself. And this active part of your body, right, this front part of your body, this is the part of your body that is always taking in impressions. It's like the inhale, always taking in, taking in. And now the front part of your body is flat against the earth. It's closing down now. Your senses are closing down, everything against the body. So we start to get into this realm of Apana Vayu. Right, and begin to slow down your inhalations and exhalations, right? You can always begin with that slowing down, the focus on the exhalation. Once you start to focus on the exhalation, you will also begin to enter the realm of how your exhalation transforms your inhalation as well. right? Perhaps you'd like to give a little bit of an audible sound to the breath and by slight constriction of the throat in Ujjayi pranayam so that you can really hear if there's any stutters, jerks, or pauses in your breathing. Good. And then just come down, all the way down as you exhale. You'll feel that downward pull, right? Really the heaviness of the pelvic girdle down through the femur bones, the heaviness of the legs. Just see how it is that you are experiencing your body in this way. What are the emotions or experiences that might be coming up in this moment? Good. If you feel comfortable, right, we can move on to now what's called Mula Bandha, which is contracting the pelvic floor, right? Collecting that Apana energy in the base of the pelvis. So as you exhale, follow the exhale down, down, down to the pelvic floor and just feel if you can slowly contract the perineum. That's the muscle at the base of the pelvic floor. And then as you inhale, you just naturally release that. And then feeling the lift and the lightness there. So as you exhale, you collect by that contraction. It's almost like the doors are closing and it creates the sense of safety around the base of the body. And then as you inhale, you release. And then for those of you who feel further comfortable, you're welcome to practice Ashwini Mudra as well. As you exhale, you can contract the pelvic floor and then also deep into the back of the body, the organs of excretion. As you squeeze the anus and the rectum, you're just closing and strengthening, getting a sense of how you feel there to be interacting with these parts of your body. If you don't feel comfortable, just continue to feel the exhale flowing down into the base. And now nice it is to have this motherly support of the earth. Prana that is supportive in the earth, the Apana Vayu. Good. Now, with your next inhalation, you'll slowly bring your legs together. If you're on your back, please roll onto your abdomen. Right, and then you'll slide your hands back by the sides of your chest. Press up into all fours. Good. You'll come into a nice tabletop position, but I'd like you to take your hands forward slightly in front, right? So we're just doing kind of isolated practices. This isn't like a sequence or anything, but just so you can get a sense of the movement of the Vayus a little bit, maybe a little bit more sensitivity. Right, this next practice is called Ganesh Mudra. Ganesh Mudra is really beginning to access the base of the body, deep into the lumbar, and into the pelvic floor, into the abdomen as well. So tuck your toes. As you exhale, bring your hips over to the right side. Continue exhaling. Bring the hips down towards the heels as though you would sit in Balasana. As you inhale, bring the hips to the left side. And then relax the hips downwards as the chest lifts towards Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. So exhaling to the right and back. Inhaling to the left and forward. So you start to explore the range of motion of the lower body. Right, this is an excellent way to really begin to wake up the knowing of what's happening at the base through movement, through flexibility, right? Remember, when Apana Vayu is a bit deranged, right, there's an inflexibility, a way in which we are not able to approach things with an open attitude, right? Because we are fixed in time and space. So letting the physical flexibility be reflective of your mental flexibility as well. Good. And the next time the hips come back towards the heels, just switch the rotation so that you're inhaling from the right to the front and then exhaling from the left to the back. And the movement is quite slow because your breath is slow, right? Slow, controlled breathing. Focus on the exhalation to understand that downward pull of the Apana Vayu. Good. And then the next time you come to all fours, you'll tuck your toes and go ahead and push up off of the knees, please. Good. And then you'll press into the ground and fold forward in your Udana, forward fold. Good. Feet can be together, that's comfortable for you. Next, inhale, interlace the fingers, rise all the way up to stand. And then exhale, lower the hands down by the sides of the body. Good. Now you come to stand, so feeling now how the pelvis is situating over the two femur bones or thigh bones. How the two thigh bones are situating over the lower leg bones deep into the heels and feeling the press of the heels down. Good. We'll start to open the chest and the lungs. So as you inhale, take the arms up. Interlace the fingers, press the palms up towards the sky. Exhale here. Feel the downward push down into the pelvic floor, down into the heels. As you inhale, lift the lower ribs, lift the waist. Good, and again, exhale, feel the downward movement of the Apana Vayu. And as you inhale, feel the filling of the lungs. Good, and then next exhalation, bend your elbows, take your hands behind the back, holding on to, right, light touch of the shoulders as the elbows draw towards one another. Good, and then same thing here. As you inhale, lengthen the fronts of the lungs. As you exhale, relax the weight into your heels. One more time. Inhaling, feeling the relationship of prana. Exhaling, feeling its relationship to apana. Good. Next inhalation, interlace your fingers, press up through the palms, and then exhale, release the hands down. Keep the waist lifted. Coming back to Tadasana, your mountain position. Good. As you breathe again, feeling this container, right? Between prana and apana is samana, the middle breath. As you breathe, you can feel yourself coursing through the middle. Good. Now inhale, take both arms up. Interlace your fingers, press the palms up. Shoulders slide down the back. Good. And then exhale, Parshvabhangi, side bend over to the right side. Head is neutral. Take one breath here. Feeling the whole lateral body opening deep into the lungs, right? That pranavayu responsible for the shaping of the lungs, the movement of respiration, circulation of the air. Next inhalation, come back up. Slide the shoulder blades down the back and then exhale over to the opposite side. Even though the opening is deep in the upper chest cavity, balancing that prana with the stability of your heels, the stability of the feeling of the pelvic floor and the pelvis, right, nicely situated over the leg bones. Good. And then inhale, go ahead and come back to center. Exhale, release the arms down. Keep a lightness in the chest. And again, back to Tadasana, relaxing your breathing. So now a little bit, maybe more awareness of Samana Vayu in the chest, Apana Vayu in the base of the body, and now to bring them together into, for Prana Vayu in the chest, to bring them together into Samana in the abdomen. So go ahead and step your feet a little bit wider than hip width apart. Good. And then you'll take your hands right above the knees. Your fingers can face out or in, whatever is most comfortable for you. Good. We'll do a little bit of abdominal squeezes. So as you exhale, keep the head neutral. Lock the elbows. You can even take the shoulders up towards the ears. It's one of the few poses in yoga where we lock everything. Good. And you feel a little bit flexibility, fluidity in the spine. Now, as you exhale, round the spine. Keep the head relaxed down. As you inhale, you can relax the abdomen. Chest broadens between the two shoulder points. Head is neutral. And then as you exhale again, feel the power and force of the abdomen drawing in and up, abdominal squeeze, Akunchana Prasarana. And then inhale, release. Good. Keep the eyes closed now. Drawing in and up. It's like a standing cat-cow. But instead of the cat-cow that we do on the ground, we're utilizing every muscle in our body, every aspect in our body to fan those 7 tongues of the digestive fire of Agni itself. Good. So with a practice like Akunchana Prasarana, you might feel very naturally a rise in the temperature, right? Good. And then inhale, relax. Don't stand up right away, please. Take the forearms on the thighs and just relax for a moment. This Akunchana Prasarana, if you know Agnisara practice, the Agnisara Kriya, it's a precursor to Agnisara Kriya, which we'll practice in another session. Right? If you stand up right away, there's a tendency to get dizzy, so be careful. Now take your hands on your thighs and just help yourself back to your Tadasana. Standing up, closing eyes. And see if you can now feel the communication between Apana, Samana, and Prana. Good. Now inhale, take your arms out into a T shape, fingers together. You can step or hop the feet apart. Right? Ankles relatively underneath your wrists. You can have your toes out, heels in. Okay, we'll come into Virabhadrasana 2, right? Our warrior 2 position. So we'll start on the right side. So go ahead and just get the foot positioning for your warrior 2, right? This is a precursor to your side angle or Parshva Konasana. Good. Right, we're not here for specific alignments in terms of the physical body, but for energetic alignment, right? So your right foot is facing right side, left toes face forward. You know the drill here already. Now, flip the palms up, please, and let the fingers curl a little naturally. And close your eyes. Keep the head neutral for now, chin over the sternum. Good. Vyana Vayu. The Vayu that begins in the heart and disperses in 72,000 nadis in all directions, the one that integrates and holds the space for all. In Virabhadrasana, there's not a sense of aggression, a sense of a warrior being someone who is always fighting, but one who is your ally, one who draws the strength from the inner wisdom of the heart. Your palms are open like holding 2 lotus flowers. And see if you can direct your Virabhadrasana from the center of the heart out in all directions. Up to the head, down through the legs, out through the arms. Good. And then exhale, relax your arms. Turn the toes back to center. Take a resting breath. And then inhale, arms reach out from the shoulders, and then you'll take an exhale and come down to Virabhadrasana on the other side. So you can flip open the palms again, right? The key to Vyana Vayu is actually absolute relaxation of the joints. So for the energy to flow, there needs to be an open channel of the joints. So if you're stiffening your fingers, stiffening your wrists, right? See if there can be a softness there. You're still extending, but it's soft. It's a sense of the heart extending out. So there's a sense of enthusiasm in the way that you hold the pose. Good. Closing the eyes. And again, let the pose come from the center point where those 101 nadis circulate in the center of the heart and then split into sub branches all throughout the rest of the body. Good. And then exhale, relax the arms. You can inhale, come back to center. Just take a resting breath. And then you'll turn back towards the front of your mat. Just go ahead and make your way down. Whichever way you like to make your way down, you come to lay on your back, please. Feet on the ground. Feet can be hip width apart, or if you can, feet together, knees together. Draw the shoulder blades down. Good. And then inhale. You'll lift from the back body, sacrum pressing into the body to rise the pelvis, bringing the heart towards the chin. And then exhale, lower down again, please. Just get used to the movement first. Next inhalation, rise up again. And then this time we stay in your bridge position. Breathing in and out. You can always do a supported bridge with a block or a blanket underneath your sacrum, right? But here, I want you to feel the pouring of the heart into the throat, into the way in which Prana and Udana are working in accord, right? There's a slight compression in the throat here. Maybe it's a strong Jalandhara Bandha where the chin is dropping down to the notch of the throat. Good. One more breath. And then exhale. You come all the way down. Resting breath here, and then you can go ahead and lengthen your legs long. Just come into a Shavasana position. Once you release the bridge position, right, again, you might feel that pulling up or flow of energy, prana in the throat. And just let everything now relax and diffuse to the rest of the body. Let the eyes close. See, as you rest, if you can just let yourself feel the harmonization of these forces through that intention of this benevolent mother of prana. The force that supports and sustains and protects, that motivates. I'll read you one last verse before we end as you lay in Shavasana. Only the fires of prana are burning in this body. Apana is like the holy hearth fire, ever burning in the home. Vyana is like the fire that faces south for carrying offerings to our ancestors. Prana is the fire that faces east, welcoming the rising sun. Samana is the equalizing fire that balances the inward and outward breath, the offerings made by the mind. And Udana is the fruit of dreamless sleep, in which the mind is led close to the self. Good. Slowly begin to breathe deeper, please. Wake up your body. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Moving, extending, stretching. Good. And then you'll please roll up to sit. You can roll to the side, roll up. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope you gained some deeper understanding and that I was successful in my intent. Thank you so much for each and every one of you who joined today. I really appreciate your attention and focus, and I wish you all well. We can end with one Om. Om Shanti. Shanti, Shanti. Thank you. So next week is chakras if you'd like to join. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sharon and Trisha. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kashi. Thank you for joining, everyone. See you next week.